What's up, everyone? Hope everyone's doing well while you're seeing this video, whether it's night or day. Doesn't really matter. I'm going to be talking about supplement use and when you should not consider supplement use and when you should consider supplement use and how to use the supplements correctly. There's a lot of misconceptions when it does come to supplement use and how people should be doing them and versus how they actually implement supplements. And a lot of people use supplements without even knowing how to properly use them or not even having to need them. The first example in mind is protein powder. Protein powder is super beneficial to a lot of advanced and lifters and kind of intermediate lifters because it provides a ton of just it saves a lot of time. It's very convenient, especially if you're busy and live in a very high stress environment. So what I do sometimes is I pre-make my protein shakes. I put them in the fridge at work and then I have them throughout the day. I wouldn't recommend relying on that kind of protein a ton because protein powders can be kind of harmful on the stomach and gut, in my opinion. At least I saw a ton of not a ton, several major problems rise up when I started heavily relying on protein. When you are talking about protein shakes, you're generally going to see several different kinds of protein. Casein powder, which is plant protein, and that digests over a longer period of time, 6 to 8 hours. So it's a lot of bodybuilders take it before they go to bed to digest it throughout the night. This isn't going to matter to you. This isn't even going to matter to pretty much anyone because as long as you're getting that protein in during the day, it's fine. And this is the most common type of protein you're going to see is whey protein. Whey protein is based off a milk compound, and whey protein comes in, generally we see two forms, whey protein concentrate and whey protein isolate. Whey protein isolate has very little milk in it and almost just bare traces of it. So if you have dairy problems or lactose problems, it would probably be best to go for the whey protein isolate versus the whey protein concentrate. Generally, you're going to see more whey protein concentrate items because they are easier to produce and less expensive. But I would recommend, if you do have issues, to look for whey protein isolate. When I started eating a lot of whey protein concentrate, a lot of lactose and dairy related problems really started springing up, and that kind of threw me off diet wise and health wise for a bit. You're also going to see rice proteins and I think even bone proteins. I tried rice proteins, but I have not tried bone proteins. And there are also egg proteins too. Egg protein is very good if you do have milk problems and you want to find something that's higher quality and that won't throw out your gut at all. The first protein I ever got was actually egg protein, and I had zero problems with it. And then I bought a less expensive whey protein consolate formula, and it really threw off my whole digestive system and kind of messed everything up. If you are a busier person, protein shakes are a really good way to get a large amount of protein in one serving. Also, if you do have problems with eating too much food rather than eating a bunch of steak or a bunch of beef, the protein powder is generally going to be in a very low caloric amount compared to the fattier meats you're going to be eating. So if you are trying to fit within that set calorie range, I would recommend protein powder. It allows you to get a lot in at once, and it's very easy to make, very easy to drink, has very little stress induced with it compared to full meal prepping. So that's when you should consider it. I wouldn't recommend it for beginner lifters. You can honestly just walk by a gym and at that point you'll still gain muscle. So just try to eat more protein, and I can practically assure you that you will be eating enough. There are so very few lifters who do not eat enough protein. It's very uncommon to see, and a lot of people think they aren't getting enough protein in, but generally they might even be getting too much in. A lot more than they would need to hit that max amount of muscle gained. I generally would recommend for beginner lifters, just stay above 0.5 grams per pound of body weight. So if you weigh 120 pounds, 60 grams of protein would work just fine on you. Your body wants to put on muscle so bad at that point, you can do anything and you'll gain muscle. I didn't even do protein powders for the first year and a half of lifting, and I was able to gain a significant amount compared to a lot of people who obsessed about that stuff. And their training wasn't fully dialed in and they did not gain anything. If your training is not dialed in and you don't have a good idea of how to train, the protein isn't going to be terribly beneficial. But if you do have a good intermediate to advanced base of knowledge of lifting, you can gain a lot from it. The second and slightly controversial topic is creatine and its benefits and possibly harmful side effects that occur with taking it. Creatine is honestly probably one of the most researched supplements and diet vitamin/supplement items that has ever been researched. I think I saw an article talking about how there was more research done on creatine than actual vitamin D and B, which is kind of crazy to think about. But creatine allows you, it provides a role in creating ATP, which is adenosine triphosphate, and that's a very simple form of energy in your muscles. And in doing so, it allows you to get a little bit more muscular stamina. And it also allows you to draw water into the muscles, giving you a little bit of a bigger look. You will gain some water weight when you do have it. It won't be fat. And a lot of times, what I see with people is they do the loading phase with creatine, which is when they take quite a large, I think it's 3 times the amount that they normally take for 2 to 3 weeks leading up to, starting creatine. And in my opinion, that is quite unnecessary, and it would become quite expensive after you do go through that loading week, just because you are consuming a ton of creatine a day. And as cheap as it is, it would eventually run out, and it's very unnecessary, because we got to look at fitness as more of a marathon compared to a sprint, and thinking of it as, I'm not just going to be doing this for a year. I'm not trying to get as humanly jacked as possible in a super short period of time. You got to look at it as like a whole life thing. So why spend a ton of money short term when you're going to be on it long term, and you can just have the very base amount without the loading phase. Also, a lot of people recommend taking breaks while consuming creatine and having days off. There's several studies done, and this does actually not have any side effects. Make sure you are consuming enough water, because it can harm some of your internal organs if you do consume a ton of creatine and you don't take the necessary steps to ensure that you are safe. There's a very small chance, but there is a chance regardless. Kidney failure could occur, but as long as you are eating a semi-decent amount of water, you should have no problem. Same thing with the protein powder. If you are not doing everything else with your training, your diet, and sleep, you shouldn't even consider it. I have never been on creatine. I know a decent amount of it, and I've seen people who have obsessed about the amount of creatine that they have, and it affects their day. They stress about it. It's without even having implemented any proper training and nutrition into their daily life. So it is completely unnecessary if you're trying to get gains, but it does have benefits to seasoned lifters and people who do have everything else dialed in. If you are interested in learning more about creatine, I'll link a few videos in the description. It's interesting. It's also super well studied, and there's actually been a few studies talking about how it can prevent brain deterioration for old people, which I think is really cool. It has a lot of benefits for Alzheimer's patients and even people who have brain damage, which is really cool. One more thing. If you are trying to get creatine, there is very small trace amounts of creatine in food, not enough to ever rely on it. You'll be spending a ton of money on meat to be able to get the necessary daily requirements, and it's just not worth it compared to the tiny $15 bottle of 30 servings that you could get anywhere else. So don't get it through your food. There is some in your food, but it's not enough to rely on. If you are going to use creatine, you can just pretty much get it anywhere. And there are different creatine formulas. Creatine monohydrate is the cheapest and has very little difference compared to the more expensive compounds. I think creatine dihydrate is one of them, and there's several different synthesized versions that people have made. Just stick with creatine monohydrate. It'll be better in your bank account, and you won't notice a difference. The next big group of supplements I want to talk about is the various pre-workouts on the market. Generally, what you see with pre-workouts is a lot of caffeine, some generally based on the different type of pre-workout. There might be a vasodilator, and sometimes even other harmful ingredients that could potentially cause harm. When you do have pre-workout, I would recommend taking a small dose, maybe a half scoop, just to really find like how much caffeine you should be having, because caffeine can cause a lot of heart complications, and it's really easy to get addicted to and rely on to wake up. I remember when I first started lifting, I would have it once or twice a day just to keep myself going, because I liked how it made me feel and I got hyped up really easily. I would recommend not fully relying on it too much, because it can influence your workouts in a negative way if you don't have anything on it, and it gets expensive when you're sharing it or when you're taking multiple scoops a day. There's like you see the Bang energy drinks, whatever. I would stay away from them. They are more expensive than the scoop forms. If you can get the purest, most simple form that doesn't have proprietary blends, due to the fact that you see a lot of companies underdosing them or cutting corners, I think Omar Isuf has a very simple pre-workout that he sells that has a lot of really good benefits to it, such as the vasodilator, and he has like a non-stimulant filled pre-workout that allows you to get the vasodilator benefits of opening up and dilating your blood vessels, compared to the hype, the jitters, and the addiction and potential heart problems that you might get from the pre-workout. When you should consider it is when you work long days or you require a lot there's just a lot taking out of you. You might be a little bit more stressed and you might not be able to fulfill to the or perform to your fullest potential. Or if there's just certain times where you have the less energy than you normally do, that it would be a better time to take it. I'd recommend not taking it 6 to 8 hours before bed because it really can enhance or hurt your sleep schedule and your sleep quality. Take it several hours, maybe an hour to an hour and a half before you lift. Get hyped, go lift, and not experience the jitters and the just pure shakiness for hours after and while you're trying to fall asleep, because that's not good. But don't take a large amounts of pre-workout because there can be a lot of harm done to you with the caffeine content, but it does have benefits regardless. The last one that I wanted to talk about was a mix between fat burners and testosterone boosters. I would highly recommend everyone stay away from fat burners and testosterone boosters. The testosterone boosters are pretty much crap regardless, and they will have very, very marginal, highly doubtable results and could potentially hurt you or cause allergic reactions due to the components inside of them. There's going to be very little to no benefit from taking these. There might be a very small amount. A lot of studies contradict each other, but none come out too favorably for the testosterone booster. Your best bet to have good testosterone is to get a lot of sleep, stay healthy, eat good healthy foods, lift heavy weights, and just be stress-free. That would naturally keep your testosterone up. I would also not recommend taking testosterone, just in general, no steroids, steroid-free. But the next kind of big one was the fat burners. So a lot of times what you see with these fat burner pills is that they have very high doses of stimulants, and when your body is on stimulants, it speeds up the bodily processes. You have a lot more energy, you have a lot more jitters, it makes you move more. And hand in hand with that stimulant, you also see a lot of different compounds that are meant to reduce hunger. So you're eating less while moving around more, and while having your body sped up, burning more calories, producing more heat. A lot of them have a thermogenic effect too, which kind of plays in hand. Your body is giving off energy, allowing you to burn more. But the effects are going to be smaller compared to a calorie surplus. You won't be losing a ton of weight unless you are eating a lot less, and they can have a lot of questionable side effects like heart problems, liver problems, stomach problems, pretty much everything. You can really suffer if you take the wrong formula long term. So I'd recommend staying clear away from them and just implementing a calorie deficit if you are trying to lose weight. That's the easiest way to do it without risking your life and spending a ton of money on supplements that might not even work or could injure you. In short, supplementation does have a lot of benefits, from convenience, ease of use, giving that little bit of extra that you wouldn't normally be able to get from your day. I would recommend first having your sleep down, your training down, your nutrition down before you even consider them. You would see benefits after having all those three down and implementing it. But if your diet is crappy and you aren't getting enough sleep and you aren't training right, supplements aren't going to do anything for you. I would really recommend getting a good, base of knowledge down over your training to be able to best advance without these supplements. And then after a year or two of training, smart and right and knowing what you're doing, maybe slowly implementing them without spending a whole paycheck on them at a time, because it can get extremely expensive. And also know what you're paying for, because you don't want to be consuming something that could potentially really hurt you in the future. But besides that, stay safe and keep it real. See you.